I'm Lucy Edwards, Director of Client Success at VHT Studios. And today, my guest is Mickey Alan Khan. Hi, Mickey.
Thank you very much, Lucy. Very happy to be here.
You have a fantastic job. Very interesting. You can't even call it a job. It's like going on vacation every morning when you wake up. Will you please tell us a few words about your beautiful organization and your duties?
Great, excellent. And thank you again for the opportunity, Lucy. So I'm the president of Luxury Portfolio International, and Luxury Portfolio International is the world's leading network of independently owned, locally connected brokerages and top luxury agents. So obviously we have members across the world, and I think we have about 225 members in North America, South America, Europe, Asia Pacific, and Africa. Obviously, we're in the midst of a pandemic, so I haven't visited all these parts of the world. I'm not yet the UN Secretary General I should be in my industry, but it is enormously a privilege for me to work with people around the world who are entrepreneurs and who basically give reality to people's dreams and aspirations when they want to buy beautiful homes and live in beautiful neighborhoods. So that's what I do, is basically help put together marketing programs, intelligence, events, and make the connections for all our members so that they can do their jobs better, and that the agents have all the materials they need and all the intelligence they need when they go on listing presentations and try to win more business. So
That's exactly what I wanted to hear. But you still travel, like you just mentioned that a couple of weeks ago you were in Florida, in Miami. So you are meeting interesting, fascinating people, leaders in real estate industry. You are meeting talented and inspiring people. So that must be great experience.
Yes, that's one of the joys of the job, actually, to meet with folks in the industry. As you pointed out, I was in Miami and I got to see this beautiful city. Every time I visit Miami, there are new buildings, new roads, and it's just hope and aspiration. Now, obviously, we know Miami has a lot of problems with, the encroaching sea and all that kind of stuff. But that's the American spirit, that we just get on with the job, and you sometimes defy the elements. I had a great time in Miami. I'll be going to Chicago soon. Mm-hmm. Then I'll be making another trip to Sarasota. And so I get to meet all these members, get to talk to their top agents, and get to learn what motivates them in their local markets. Where are they getting business from? So the Miami trip taught me a lot about how Miami, which used to expect 70% of its business from South America mm-hmm. and Europe, now gets 70% of its business from cities such as New York, Chicago, and New Jersey. And it's flipped because of the pandemic. And the cities adapted. The developers have adapted. The agents have adapted, and so have the brokers. So when I go to these markets, I'm not just speaking on behalf of Luxury Portfolio, I'm also gathering intelligence that I can use to talk to other members in the network and say, all right, if this is happening in this particular market, this is how they've adapted. You can do something similar in your market if you have opportunities or challenges.
And I can relate to that, because as VHT Studios and the company that is just in about every state in the United States, we also gather the information, gather the intelligence, and we share with our agents different marketing strategies and what's good for that property or for this condo. So that is very, very similar. Of course, you are on another level. Your 225 members have thousands of agents there, right?
Yes. Luxury Portfolio is part of the leading real estate companies in the world. That network is about 550 members and 150,000 agents. Now, my thinking is that about 10% or 15% of those agents are really top agents, like dealing in properties upwards of $1 million. Mm-hmm. So we are still talking about 220 companies with about 15,000 to 20,000 agents. And these people deal with properties that are architectural gems, that are located in the best locations, have fantastic gardens and landscapes, and their residents are very well known. They're either celebrities or success stories in their markets. So you're dealing with the cream of the crop.
Well, define luxury, because someone will buy a $250,000 condo and for them it's a luxury. Someone will think that everything above 25 million is a luxury. What, in your opinion, is the luxury and what should belong to luxury portfolio?
Obviously, Lucy, that's a very good question. Now, luxury is like beauty. It's in the eyes of the beholder, right? But I would say that, having said that, there is a certain standard. While you're looking at income and saying, all right, for a person earning X amount of dollars, that property is a luxury for them. But even for a top earner, there has to be a bar for luxury. Now, in luxury portfolio's case, our floor is $1 million. Now, $1 million in a smaller market in North Carolina might be the upper end of luxury. But in New York, it will not even get your studio in the right neighborhood, right? So for us, my definition of luxury is not by perception of the person, but basically a flat standard of value. A $10 million property is something to give anybody a pause, even if you're a millionaire, because it's still $10 million, all right? Luxury typically is quality, rarity, craftsmanship, if you're looking at a luxury good. Some of the same qualities have to go into real estate. A fabulous location, fantastic architecture, wonderful amenities, great neighborhood, right? Has to have all the qualities that would attract someone who's looking for privacy, security, safety, good school district. So a combination of all of this stuff in a house that's reasonably large, a plot that's reasonably large. That to me is luxury. So these are things that you can't just say that, hey, someone who's making $500,000 a year can afford right off the bat. You still have to stretch if you're looking to buy a $20 million property, because that will be a luxury for you.
Correct.
So to me, it should be something that's a bit unattainable.
Interesting. That's the way to look at it.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about luxury agent. Not every agent can be a luxury agent to work with clientele that is interested in a certain luxury property. It's not just buying expensive shoes and expensive suit. It's more than that. So let's talk about it.
Yes. So, a luxury agent, by definition, is dealing with properties above a certain value, right? When you're dealing with clients in that strata of income, their expectations are completely different. They've been serviced by brands such as Hermes, Louis Vuitton, Cartier. So when they're interacting with those people in that part of their life, they expect the same treatment when they're working with agents. After all, don't forget that the house is typically the most expensive luxury product. If they're getting the same level of courtesy for a $100,000 Birkin bag, a house worth $10 million, that agent has to be extra courteous, intuitive, smart, and anticipate the client's needs. So you have to go above and beyond what is expected as a luxury agent. You also have to be sophisticated in the ways of the world. You have to know what's going on in the larger luxury business. You must know what's going on with the largest luxury manufacturers or the service providers. Borrow some ideas from there. Have enough knowledge to chit-chat, to have small talk that makes your client or prospect comfortable, you see, so that they can identify with you. You recognize that shoe is the latest Manolo Blahnik model, or you recognize the car is the latest model of Mercedes or Rolls-Royce. Small things like that make a difference. And that's what makes a luxury agent. Not you wearing a Rolex or not you acting like the client himself or herself. That I find is basically false behavior, because you don't want to look richer than your client. right? So that's another thing that can intimidate people. I remember one of my friends, he was a very top executive at a tech company. And one day he decided to go and buy a BMW 7 Series. Lovely car. You can stretch. So he had it for a year or so. And then he realized that his relationship with his boss started fraying. So I said, why? He said, I think it's because I drive a better car than my boss. And but he traded down to a BMW 5 and things improved.
That's a great example.
So you don't want to show up to a prospect's house, in a Rolls Royce, right? So again, being a luxury agent is understanding that, how do you calibrate your lifestyle, your behavior, your dressing to meet your prospects. Yes, they should identify with you, but you are not one of them. And something you've got to remember. Be friendly, not familiar. Know just enough to make great talk, put them at ease. Maybe down the road you'll become friends. But remember, friendly, not familiar.
That certainly makes great sense. I would like to add to what you just said. That was absolutely fantastic. That is the description of the luxury agent all the way around. I also believe that luxury deserves the best marketing strategy. And that includes not just professional photography or video or whatever else. It starts from the beginning, from the moment you open the door, from professional staging, from making sure that the house smells good, looks good, the flowers are fresh. All the details, just like you were saying, all the details have to be there. And I noticed that sometimes agents take the situation for granted and they don't invest their soul in that property. What do you think?
I tend to agree with you in some cases. In luxury, you sweat the small stuff. It's the small things that matter. So if you're an agent and you walk into a listing, the first thing you do is, if you are basically going there as an advisor and you still haven't won the listing, you take a look at the layout of the furniture, right? And if you've got a fabulous balcony out there and you've got clutter in front of the balcony, on your way to the balcony, you don't want that to basically hinder someone from trying to go and take a look at the view outside. So things like that, how to stage, should come naturally to you. I'm not saying that you should compete with a professional stager, but you must have enough working knowledge of how to have a flow in the house. Artwork, you don't want it to be very heavy when you're showing listings, because you don't want to influence people if they see a Marxist-Leninist type artwork in a swanky condo. It's sending the wrong message, all right? But the fact is that someone who's a diehard capitalist sees that one painting and develops a negative feeling about that place. It's nothing wrong with the bones of the house. That artwork has turned that person off. So small things like that, I'm not saying make the house completely bland, but keep in mind who your target is. So when you launch a product, you always understand and identify a target market. So when you have a condo or a house or an estate, in your mind or even on paper, put together a plan for who the target market is and what would appeal to that particular market. You can't be all things to everybody. And start from there. And that's how you basically build a profile of your target. And then what would this target like, right? Is it a single person? Is it a retiree? Is it newly divorced? Is it empty nesters? And then you design your materials, your marketing, your media plans around that. Same thing with interior design and decoration. Invest a little bit. If I were an agent, I would sit through a lot of courses. I would attend webinars. I'd attend seminars. And basically, at the end of the day, you are helping transfer somebody's dream to somebody else. You're basically taking one dream and handing it over to somebody else. That sunrise will be somebody else's, right? So how do you make sure that the buyer or the prospect gets that vision? So whatever you do, you're upskilling yourself. And that's what makes you a very good luxury agent. You have to upskill yourself in photography, in staging, in marketing, in research, in lifestyle stuff. And just basically getting to know your luxury business itself. What's going on? Like, has Gucci launched a new handbag? Has Dior launched a new scent? Is there a fabulous new campaign out there that they should know? And that just gives you enough traction to get the conversation going.
Beautifully said. Absolutely beautifully. And I like how you mentioned professional photography, professional media. It is so important because when you are taking a luxury listing and you are running around with your cell phone, that is an insult to the seller. And that's insult to the buyer who is interested in that property. So I think the professional marketing strategy, intelligent marketing strategy is an absolute must in a situation like that.
I cannot emphasize enough the importance of photography and videos. Because while for very, very expensive properties, it doesn't matter because it's just word of mouth and you go and see, but the vast majority of properties, you're selling through an image. You're seducing the prospect through an image. That image has to tell a good story. And if you don't understand basic things like if you're taking a photograph, you've got to show 3 corners. You see, 2 walls, the ceiling, depth, lighting, stuff like that. Now, your job as an agent, you're there to basically make sure you marshal the resources together. You can't be the best photographer. It's one thing if you are a professional photographer who's also an agent. So I'd always recommend, if you've got an expensive property, set aside a marketing budget and devote some money to photography and drones and videos, because that's what is going to convey the message.
And the story.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and every house has the story, and that absolutely deserves the best of the best. I totally agree with you. And speaking of a new agent, lately, especially with pandemic, there are some agents that just fell off the market because they just couldn't handle it. They were not able to keep up with all the changes and the education and technology. Others became stronger and secured their position in the market. So let's talk about the new agent.
Yes, so the pandemic obviously caused a lot of disruption in the market. And unfortunately, what happened was, markets that were really strong, like the Northeast, they lost a lot of residents to low tax, no tax, warmer states, right? So it was a lifestyle shift. You could work from home. Now, a bit of that is changing. Offices will eventually expect people back in. But the fact is that we are going to have a hybrid lifestyle for the next 5 years or so, right? Agents that adapted did fabulously well. Why? Because they anticipated where the money was moving. So those agents who were smart, they went and basically networked. They called their customers, their old clients, and say, how can I help you? So they were ahead of the curve, right? They also got in touch with people in the parts of the country where these clients were moving, so they could get referral revenue, right? They were really smart. Some of them were outrightly lucky. If you happen to be a Florida agent, I think you were lucky last year. Same thing for Texas, same thing for the 2 Carolinas, because a lot of the Northeast money went down there. Now they have to work for their living, because as the pandemic, I know we are still in the midst of a pandemic, but we've already had 2 waves, and the best homes have already exchanged hands. And now you're going to have a second crop of homes that come on the market that were held up as investments, or landlords holding on to them. And if interest rates go up, then obviously those homes will come back on the market. Now these agents have to fight for listings. They're up against competition. What makes them different? Again, I go back to what I said. Your knowledge, your ability to sense where the markets are moving, having some empathy or understanding with the customer, understanding them, being intuitive about their needs, and proactive. Those things count for a lot. The polish, that's what's most important is, are you polished and skilled and sophisticated in the ways of luxury? And I don't mean luxury in the sense of opulence. I mean, these are people who can afford quality. They're paying for quality service, quality products. Do the agents understand that? So that is how top agents get separated from the weak agents, is they understand all of this and they make an effort on their own. They're not waiting for their brokerage to supply them all this material. They're going and doing research on their own. They're reading up. They're connecting with people. They're attending events and saying, how do I make myself better? How do I improve my offering and my appeal? So it's a lot of proactive decision making on the agent's part. Those agents who sit back and wait for business to come in are order takers. Those agents who are going out, they're salespeople. So if you want to be a top agent today, you have to be a salesperson and not an order taker. And that, I think, is another key differentiator.
Just a few words on brokerages. Brokerages are fighting for those agents who are successful, who are talented, outgoing, inventive. So what is going on? Because some companies and some brokers, they're basically breaking the industry, breaking the market by offering unreasonable splits and so on.
That, unfortunately, this is not a new problem, but it's intensified simply because the competition amongst brokerages has intensified. You have new platforms, you have brands that are licensed, that are looking to expand, and the only way they can do that is by stealing market share. And they do that by wooing top agents from rival brokerages. And how do you do that? By saying, hey, we let you keep a larger chunk of the commission. So it's not 50-50, it's not 40-60, it's now in some cases 75-25.
In some cases 80-20.
80-20. And if I shan't name this company, in some cases, when they offer a flat amount to entice the brokers, they're saying you keep 100% of the commission for the first 2 years. So that is going to be totally damaging to the business model of brokerages at some point. And we haven't reached that tipping point yet. But the only way out of that position is to make sure that as a brokerage, you're not heavily reliant on superstars. I've always been taught as a business owner, as a CEO, as a marketing student, that the brand is bigger than the people. Always. And I think brokerages forget that. They let a lot of their agents develop themselves into very big brands with teams. And then their brand, the brokerage's brand, becomes a secondary brand. And that's when the agent has more power. I'm not saying there should be a power tussle between the two, but you should have a stable of agents or groom a stable of agents that where you are not beholden to the top two to bring in the bulk of your luxury business.
Exactly. And I think for the agent to leverage their brand and the brand of the company, it's very important, but still they should be proud of the firm they're working for.
Yeah.
And therefore they're part of, because they're independent contractors, they're part of that company. They should be proud of that as well. I think it is very important. And I think it's important to understand that your company is going to offer a really good back for you. They have the platform, they have the marketing tools, they have good ideas, they're respectful, and they can give a great advice to you as an agent as well when it's needed.
Yes, 100% right. I would say if brokers want to retain their top agents, they have to invest more in their own branding. And I'm not just saying just getting your name out there. Make sure that the foundation you stand on is really firm. I come back to making sure you have the right marketing, you have the right intelligence, you have the right networking, you have the right resources for an agent to feel completely secure that, hey, I'm an independent contractor, and if I tie my fortune to this particular brokerage brand, they'll take care of me and I'll take care of them. You see, it's a very symbiotic relationship. And that's what you want. The brokerage has to spend more money on themselves. If you don't love yourself, no one else will love you.
That is true.
They need a little more self-love. They can't expect more of the agent when they don't expect more of themselves. So once you build a great name for yourself in the market, the agent can use that name with pride. But if the agent is being constantly wooed by a competitor or a bunch of competitors who've got established names that are licensed and the grass is always greener on the other side, what do? That is a major conundrum now faced by a lot of independent brands. And that's not going away. So all I'd say is invest more in building up your profile in your market. Make sure that people know that you are a leader in your market. Have the training tools. And it's not just about taking your agent out to breakfast or lunch or dinner. It's not that. It's randomly calling up and saying, hey, Joe, what are you doing? How can I help you? Why don't you come in, see us? You don't want an agenda, but just have these touch points where they feel the warmth. And it's not just a perfunctory, grip and grin or, all right, I've got to meet these 25 agents and I'm done with this. No. These guys don't work for you.
It's a relationship. You are building the relationship with your agent. Your agent is part of your company. It's part of your soul now. So I think it is very important to build that relationship.
I would say the way to look at an agent is that they don't work for you. They work with you. And when you think of it that way, you treat them differently. Yes, agents will have high expectations of brokerages. That's not going to change. Yes, they'll expect more commissions. Agents, by their very own nature, are freelance, independent contractors. It's feast or famine for most of them. Years that are good are fantastic. Years that are bad are awful. Very often they are juggling two jobs, right? So when you're at the high end, they always need the love. They need the referral revenue. They need to be felt that, someone has their back. And you have to be creative and get to know the person in a way where you anticipate their behavior. You're working with these guys, right? So you can't have a one-size-fits-all to all top agents, but all of them want to feel the love and they need more of it, right? So you've got to be extra loving.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Totally agree with you. I would like to touch base on lifestyle. A lot of what happened in the last year and a half, a lot of people were moving away from New York City, for example. Now we can see that they're coming back, or maybe it's not them, maybe it's someone else. But the market is feeling stronger and stronger every day. And it's because of the lifestyle. We relocated to Florida, for example, but I just came back on a business trip and I'm enjoying every moment walking down the street. I love everything. I love the way New York smells, the way it looks, the people, the freedom. Lifestyle is important.
Lifestyle is important in every market. And you mentioned New York. I live in New York. New York has its problems. It has the noise. It has the pollution. It has the crowds. Even now, it still has crowds. But what it has is people. The most important thing that keeps New York going is it attracts the best talent from around the country, right? People are what make a neighborhood and a city. As long as we keep the best and the brightest, we are okay, all right? At some point in time, if you're really top of your field, you have to set foot in New York, right? So for a city like New York, it has to constantly reinvent itself to stay relevant to the next generation. We went from being a manufacturing center and a port to being an entertainment hub, to being a banking center, a real estate, advertising and marketing and media, now tech. And obviously we rely heavily on tourism. The city has suffered tremendously because we can't still get international tourism the way we used to. But this city has been around since 1626. You don't rule out, you don't bet against New York. Why? Because it attracts the best and the brightest. And taxes just happen to be the price you pay for being next to the best and brightest. I live very close to Central Park. I live close to the Metropolitan Museum. I'm 3 blocks from anything I need in my life, from groceries to food, to restaurants, to the laundry, you name it, to dry cleaners and everything. It's the sheer convenience. I don't have to take my car out to do all those things. I save time. I can walk to work.
And with pleasure.
And with pleasure. So these are the pluses. On the other hand, you have the taxes. I have to pay a city tax, I have to pay a state tax, and I have to pay a federal tax. I live only once. I'm willing to pay that tax for a good life. You see? And all I can tell you is New York has suffered crisis in the past. It's bounced back. But it has to reinvent itself. And, even when people complain about the city and all that, now look at you. You've come visiting. You enjoy it. You take a walk through Central Park. And if you have any worries, you see the greenery. And guess what? Something comes over you and you relax.
Exactly.
So each city has to find their own New York, that New York state of mind. And that's what I'm enjoying right now.
Wonderful. I want to come back to New York. Forget Florida.
Now I'm the new tourism bureau for New York.
Well, thank you so much, Miki. And today with me was Miki Alam Khan. He's the president of Luxury Portfolio International. And it was such a great pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Lucy. Really appreciate it. I've always enjoyed talking to you. You have a very nice, welcoming manner, and it's always a pleasure to spill the beans.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Lucy Edwards, Director of Client Success at VHT Studios.